if you're over 60 and you've been keeping up with your regular checkups, you probably feel like you're doing the right thing. You show up, follow the doctor's advice, maybe even feel a little proud that you're staying on top of your health. But here's the part nobody warns you about. Some of those very checkups could be quietly working against you. Not because your doctor means harm, and not because the tests are wrong, but because certain routine medical procedures, when done too often or without careful review, can weaken your body in ways that aren't obvious until it's too late. You go in walking steady, but over time, something feels different. Your legs get tired faster. You start holding on to railings. Maybe you avoid stairs. You chalk it up to age. But what if it isn't just age? What if part of the problem started in the clinic? I've seen this happen more times than I can count. Tests that trigger inactivity, medications that sap strength, or procedures that unintentionally speed up muscle loss. And if you're not aware, you won't see it coming. In this video, I'll walk you through 5 common medical tests that could be stealing your strength without a word of warning, and I'll show you how to stay protected, informed, and in control of your independence. 1. DEXA scans done too frequently. If you're over Altmush, chances are you've heard of the DEXA scan. It's that routine test that checks your bone density to see if you're at risk for osteoporosis. On the surface, it sounds responsible, maybe even essential. Who wouldn't want to avoid a broken hip or spine? Right. But here's the truth. No one's talking about when this scan is done too often, especially without clear cause. It can quietly set off a chain of decisions that damage your legs, your strength, and your freedom. I've seen it too many times in my practice. It usually starts with an older adult who feels fine. They've had no falls, no fractures. They're active, steady, independent, but their scan shows a slight dip in bone density, something very normal with age. And just like that, they're put on a medication from the bisphosphonate family drugs like Fosamax or Actonel. These meds are meant to slow bone loss, but when prescribed without real need or taken too long, they can do the opposite. They can make bones brittle, especially the femur, the big thigh bone that carries your body's weight every time you walk. I think of my patient Evelyn. She was 77, a retired teacher, proud and strong, walked a mile every morning. Her third DEXA scan in 4 years showed mild osteopenia, not osteoporosis, just a small decrease in density. Her doctor immediately started her on bisphosphonates. No other risk factors. No history of fractures. Just a number on a report. 16 months later, she stepped off a curb and felt a sharp pain in her thigh. No fall. No trip. Just a spontaneous femur fracture. The kind we see when bones become overly dense and brittle from medication. She needed surgery, rehab, and most of all, she lost her confidence in walking. That fear of movement, that's what really weakens the muscles. And it all started with a test she didn't need. So before your next scan, ask, do I really need this now? Have there been changes in my health, or is this just habit? In many cases, one DEXA scan every 3 to 5 years is enough, unless you have active signs of bone loss. Don't let overtesting lead you down a path of overtreatment, because the next test is not just risky. It can erase your brain's ability to move your legs at all. If you found this helpful, comment with a 1. And now, let's talk about point number 2. 2. EMG and nerve conduction tests without clear symptoms. Some symptoms come and go. A little tingling in your feet, a mild sense of numbness that fades. It doesn't feel like a big deal. But then your doctor says, just to be cautious, let's schedule an EMG, maybe a nerve conduction study. 2. These tests sound routine, safe. But here's the truth. No one tells you, when done without clear clinical need, they can quietly set off a dangerous chain reaction, one that drains your confidence, weakens your legs, and speeds up physical decline in ways you never saw coming. EMG and nerve studies measure the electrical signals between your nerves and muscles. They're helpful. Yes. But here's the problem. As we age, our nerve conduction naturally slows. It doesn't always mean damage. It doesn't always mean disease. But when those natural changes get misinterpreted, the result is a label, a diagnosis, a cascade of worry and procedures. I've seen it far too often. A patient goes in with a little stiffness or some age-related numbness. The test shows minor, non-specific changes. Suddenly there's talk of neuropathy, referrals to specialists, maybe even surgery. George, a 73-year-old retired postman from Indiana, lived this story. He came to me after a year of slow unraveling. One EMG turned into injections, then spine surgery, post-op. George couldn't walk the same. He lost strength, confidence. Within months, he was barely leaving the house. Not because of his original symptoms, but because of everything that followed a test he never truly needed. The damage wasn't just physical. It was emotional, psychological. He told me, I thought I was broken, but I was just getting older. That stuck with me. EMGs can be life-saving when truly necessary, but done too soon, too casually, or without a full clinical picture. They can do more harm than good. The next test on our list takes that risk even further. Because it's not just a diagnosis, it's an injection straight into your joints. And what it does over time may be even worse. If you're still with me, comment number 1 to let me know you're watching closely. Let's keep going. 3. Repeated steroid injections in the knee or hip. Some symptoms come and go. A little tingling in your feet. A mild sense of numbness that fades. It doesn't feel like a big deal. But then your doctor says, just to be cautious, let's schedule an EMG. Maybe a nerve conduction study. 2. These tests sound routine, safe. But here's the truth. No one tells you, when done without clear clinical need, they can quietly set off a dangerous chain reaction. One that drains your confidence, weakens your legs, and speeds up physical decline in ways you never saw coming. EMG and nerve studies measure the electrical signals between your nerves and muscles. They're helpful, yes, but here's the problem. As we age, our nerve conduction naturally slows. It doesn't always mean damage. It doesn't always mean disease. But when those natural changes get misinterpreted, the result is a label, a diagnosis, a cascade of worry and procedures. I've seen it far too often. A patient goes in with a little stiffness or some age-related numbness. The test shows minor, non-specific specific changes. Suddenly there's talk of neuropathy, referrals to specialists, maybe even surgery. George, a 73-year-old retired postman from Indiana, lived this story. He came to me after a year of slow unraveling. One EMG turned into injections, then spine surgery. Post-op, George couldn't walk the same. He lost strength, confidence. Within months, he was barely leaving the house. Not because of his original symptoms, but because of everything that followed a test he never truly needed. The damage wasn't just physical. It was emotional, psychological. He told me, I thought I was broken, but I was just getting older. That stuck with me. EMGs can be life-saving when truly necessary, but done too soon, too casually, or without a full clinical picture, they can do more harm than good. The next test on our list takes that risk even further, because it's not just a diagnosis. It's an injection straight into your joints. And what it does over time may be even worse. If you're still with me, comment number 1 to let me know you're watching closely. Let's keep going. 4. Arthroscopic surgery in adults over 65. Some procedures sound simple on paper. Just a small incision, a tiny scope, a quick cleanup inside your knee or hip. That's how arthroscopic surgery is usually sold. Fast, easy, low risk. But for older adults, especially after 65, this supposedly minor operation can quietly unravel the strength in your legs and set off a decline that no one warns you about. Arthroscopy is often recommended to shave down rough cartilage, remove debris, or clean up arthritis. The problem: it rarely delivers lasting relief in seniors. In fact, many studies now show that these surgeries offer no significant long-term improvement for age-related joint pain. Instead, what they often leave behind is something far worse than the original discomfort: a loss of strength, independence, and trust in your own movement. Think about it. Even the smallest surgery comes with downtime. Time spent off your feet, avoiding stairs, resting the joint. And in younger adults, the body often bounces back. But in your 72nd or 82nd, even a few days of reduced activity can lead to rapid muscle loss, and that muscle may never return. I think of Barbara, one of my most resilient patients. She was 81, sharp, independent, still walked to her neighborhood market every day. And then came a little knee soreness. Her doctor suggested an arthroscopy, just a routine cleanup. She agreed. But the weeks that followed were anything but routine. Barbara struggled with mobility, relied on a walker, and needed help from her daughter just to get out of bed. When she finally came to me, she'd lost nearly half the strength in her quads. She didn't trust her legs anymore. And what began as a minor ache had now rewritten her entire lifestyle. This is the silent risk, not the incision, not the procedure, but the unintended fallout: weeks of inactivity, muscle atrophy, and the mental spiral that follows. Before you agree to an arthroscopy, ask, have I truly exhausted physical therapy? Anti-inflammatory plans, supportive footwear. Has my mobility worsened or just fluctuated with use? Because when the muscle goes, so does your balance, your confidence, and your independence. And up next is something that doesn't even involve a needle or knife, but it may still convince you that you're fragile, even when you're not. 5. Postural stability tests that mislabel you as frail. Sometimes the most damaging part of aging isn't the body breaking down, it's being told you already have. That's exactly what happens with postural stability tests. These are the simple exercises they ask you to do in a clinic stand on one leg. Walk heel to toe. Shift side to side. Harmless. Right. But here's the trap. One small stumble. One moment of hesitation. And suddenly you're labeled high fall risk, balance compromised, frail. And that label doesn't just stay on paper. It enters your mind. You begin to question yourself. You walk less. You sit more. You hesitate at curbs. You stop taking stairs. And what started as a minor misstep becomes a full-blown erosion of muscle, confidence, and independence. I think about my patient Thomas, a 6-year-old jazz musician from New Orleans, vibrant, energetic, always on his feet. He wobbled once during a clinic test. No fall, no harm. But that was enough. The physical therapist flagged him. The doctor suggested a cane. Within weeks, Thomas stopped walking to his favorite cafe. He stopped playing live. When I saw him 3 months later, his calves and glutes had lost over 25% of their strength, not because of age or illness, but because of a diagnosis he never earned. The damage wasn't just physical, it was psychological. He told me, "I feel like someone else now." That's what these tests can do when misused. They plant fear. They create limitation. They convince capable people they're fragile. The truth is, a little instability isn't always a warning sign. Sometimes it just means you haven't trained that movement in a while. Sometimes it's stiffness, not weakness, or shoes, not nerves. We need to be more thoughtful before branding someone with a label that rewrites how they move through the world. If you're ever told your balance is poor, ask for a second opinion. Ask for a strength assessment. Ask what can be trained instead of what must be avoided. Because at this stage in life, one of the most powerful things you can protect is not just your body, but your belief in your body. And now that we've uncovered the 5 hidden threats, it's time to talk about what you can actually do to stay strong, mobile, and confident for years to come. 6. So, what should older adults do instead? So after hearing how routine tests can quietly chip away at your strength, your confidence, and even your independence, the natural question becomes, what should you actually do instead? The answer isn't about rejecting medicine. It's about reclaiming your role in it. Because the most powerful tool you have as you age isn't another scan or specialist. It's your awareness, your choices, and your movement. It starts by shifting the question. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" ask, "What's the function of this test? Will it help me move better, feel stronger, live fuller?" If the answer is no, pause. One of my patients, Martha, a 74-year-old widow from Colorado, came to me after being told she needed an MRI and a steroid shot for hip pain. No discussion of movement. No look at her strength. Just tests and a needle. Instead, we went a different way. Martha committed to 3 months of focused physical therapy. No machines, No injections. Just strength training for her hips, walking drills, and balance work. We also reviewed her meds and made sure her vitamin D and hydration were on point. Slowly, her pain faded, but more importantly, her legs came back to life. Today, she walks 3 miles daily. Unassisted. No surgery. No fear. That's what we forget. Age doesn't equal decline. Stillness does. The best defense against the slow creep of weakness is action. Gentle resistance training 2 to 3 times a week can rebuild what decades of aging or overtreatment have taken. And remember, you are not just a patient. You are the decision maker. The system may treat you like a checklist, but your body is not a checklist. It's a story. Your story. So ask better questions. Choose movement. Choose strength. And don't let anyone define you by one test or one moment. These 5 tests may be common, but they don't define your future. You do. And now, let's bring it all together. Have we been fearing the wrong things all along? Let's find out. Final reflection. Have we been taught to fear the wrong things? As we get older, we're told that more tests mean better care. That the key to staying healthy is early detection, quick treatment, and full trust in every step of the medical process. But after decades working with older adults, I've come to see something different, something better, but just as real. Sometimes the biggest threat to your strength isn't a disease, it's the system itself. Every one of the tests and procedures we've covered, from DEXA scans and cortisone shots to EMGs and arthroscopies, was designed with good intentions, but when used without context, without understanding, and without clear goals, they can do more than inconvenience you. They can shrink your confidence. They can quietly strip away your mobility, your muscle, and your sense of control. And most dangerous of all, they can plant the idea that you're fragile even when you're not. That's the silent harm we don't talk about. You weren't born weak. You've lived decades, built families, shaped communities. Your body still holds more strength and potential than most systems give you credit for. What you need most right now isn't another scan or another specialist. It's clarity. It's caution. It's the courage to ask, is this right for me? Because sometimes the smartest choice is to wait, observe, and move with intention, not fear. Decline isn't always inevitable. In many cases, it's preventable. And that's the message I hope you carry with you. You deserve care that sees more than your chart or your age. You deserve care that honors your life, your goals, and your power to choose. You are not just going along for the ride, you're in the driver's seat. So next time someone suggests a test, pause it, ask questions, think about your strength, your needs, and your future. Because the strongest decision you make may not be to say yes. It may be the decision to say no. If this series has meant something to you, I'd love to know what you're taking away. Share one insight, one action, one change you'll make. Let's keep learning and supporting each other as we age with strength, dignity, and purpose. And if this video helped you, let us know by commenting the number 1 below. If it didn't, feel free to comment 0. Either way, thank you for being here. And here's to living on your terms.